For all of human history, human labor has been the ultimate source of power. Kings have used it, emperors have used it, entire nations have been built on the back of human labor. But now, for the first time ever, this is beginning to change. We're starting to see a shift. And at the forefront of this shift is none other than software engineers. And this video is tailored for specifically software engineers to help them realize that they have the power to change the world within the next decade or two. And if you're wondering who is this crazy guy we're talking about, my name is Bago. And I started just like many of you as a regular junior developer. And I went on to climb the corporate ladder, understand that the regular 9 to 5 is greatly limiting us as software engineers. And I got to see firsthand just how little of an impact you have on the world in a corporate setting versus if you go out and take things to your own hands and really seeing the value that you can provide as a software engineer. You can really, truly change the world. And that's what this video is going to be largely about, is to showcase how you as a software engineer can change the world. And to further prove that you as a software engineer can change the world, I'm not the only one who's gotten results such as this. There's countless other people who have helped actually get the same exact kind of results. I'm not going to go over them. You can stop and look at the screen later if you want, but let's jump straight into it. So most software engineers don't actually realize the true potential of their skills, right? Instead of building things that solve real world problems, they tend to get stuck in routine tasks or projects that aren't entirely meaningful in the long term. And the corporate environment only makes this problem worse because it prioritizes maintenance over innovation. There's a lot of red tape in there's a lot of red tape in the corporate environment, and a lot of times you can't really be too creative with what you want to do. You have to follow a strict guideline as to what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. And the reason this video is so important now is because in our current time, with the continuous advancement of AI, software engineers can now easily be one-man armies. One software engineer now, with the help of AI, can get a project done within probably the same time frame as maybe 5 software engineers from, say, 10 years ago. They can leverage AI to 10x their output for the same amount of input, in this case, input being time. So that's well and all, but how can you specifically, as a software engineer, find these real world problems to actually solve and begin changing the world one problem at a time? And how can you do all that while actually incorporating AI to make your job even easier? Because what I do know is this: while AI might not replace humans right now, I know for a fact that humans who use AI will replace those who do not. So let's first understand the importance of a problem and why we're even talking about a problem when it comes to changing the world or having actual impact on the world. The reason we have to understand the importance of the problem is because pain is the greatest motivator in business. It has been and always will be. That's one thing that will never change. At its core, business is all about risk mitigation and survival, right? So I'm sure you've heard before, it's a marathon, not a sprint. That's because at the core of it, businesses are entirely built around pain. And what a business wants to do is survive for as long as possible and grow continuously doing so, right? And for business to mitigate this risk and continue their survival, they need to take action, right? They need to take action to avoid the pain of potentially failing. And this pain can manifest in various ways: mental, physical, emotional, whatever the case. You'll often see that most of the time, businesses actually tend to avoid pain more so than focus on pursuing specific gains. That is because for a business, a loss weighs slightly more than a win, right? Because at the end of the day, a business can be extremely successful for 1 or 2 years, but that doesn't matter if in the third year they go bankrupt, right? As a result, a lot of businesses are more focused on actually avoiding pain rather than pursuing specific gains. And we understand that pain stems from problems. And there are a lot of problems for us to solve, meaning that there's at least equally as many, if not more, pain points out there. And the most important thing for us is that we choose a problem that is actually worth solving, considering how many problems there actually exist in the world. So there's mainly 3 types of problems that we really have to look out for. And these 3 types of problems are as follows: problems that you're aware of, so this is what you know; problems that you are not aware of but exist, so what you don't know; and last but not least, problems you don't know. And if we were to kind of visualize this section right here would be what you know, right? This would be here what you know that you don't know, and this here would be what you don't know, right? You have no actual understanding. You can't even fathom this, right? This isn't even in your brain. This is in your brain, and you know that you don't know this, right? You have no knowledge of it. You don't know how you would solve these problems. And this little part you do know. Now, keep in mind, in reality, this would probably make up 0.00 something percent. This would be about 1 or 2%, and this one would be 98%, right? Like 97 point something. This would be the majority. And so if we want to find a problem, right? If we want to focus on finding a problem, we have to find one that's actually worthy of being solved. And for us to do so, we have to think outside the box. Because you see, the majority of software engineers tend to default to creating a SaaS. And I remember when I was first starting off, I was also guilty of this. And these SaaS that people tend to default to are usually in the forms of developer tools, productivity tools, marketing or sales platforms, or just other niche solutions such as API platforms, reporting tools, or whatever the case. So if we want to find a problem that's actually worthy of being solved, we want to think outside of the box. And here is where the golden opportunity really gets introduced to us. We want to focus on the last two type of problems, but not completely disregard what we actually know. So if we were to take a look back at our three types of problems, we want to focus on what we know that we don't know and what we don't know that we actually don't know, right? The reason being is because most often than not, most software engineers have a bias for what they know. And as a result, they tend to focus on things that they already know. And since most software engineers follow the same path, they learn the same things, they have the same exact biases. This is why you see so many people, especially in startups, tend to do the same exact things. So as a result, we want to focus on these two over here. That's not to say we want to completely disregard this, but our primary focus should be on these two slots over here. And this is where the actual software engineer bias gets introduced to us. Software engineers often default to a SaaS because it's what they're familiar with, right? It's highly visible as a successful model, as we've seen with the startups, right? Facebook, Amazon, and so on and so forth. And it requires a lot less effort than exploring any unfamiliar industries with deeper untapped opportunities, right? And this is actually known as the cognitive bias index. Now, if you're not familiar with this, I'll leave a link down in the description so you can explore this on your own time. This will take me hours to go over, but just understand that there are certain biases that play into the role of software engineers defaulting to a SaaS. And it's our job for us to make a conscious decision to step outside of these biases and focus on other problems. And the way that we can actually visualize this is, imagine if there was an auction for problems, right? And different people were bidding different amounts for these problems, right? You would understand that for one person, one problem might be worth this amount, but for another person, that problem might be worth maybe this much, right? So different problems are worth different amounts of money for different types of people. And in this specific case, what would end up happening is, if we have a software engineer here and everybody in the room is also a software engineer, they would all tend to bid on the same type of problems every single time. But we want to take a step outside of that. We want to think outside of the box, right? And as a result, we have to understand the unique advantage. So the unique advantage is essentially our location. So this is our actual physical location, our network, and our experience. And the goal here is to use our actual physical location, our network, and our experience, be it our technical experience or life experience, to find problems outside the common scope of a software engineer. So if you can think beyond the tech bubble that you're used to, you can unlock opportunities in various fields, right? So healthcare, logistics, finance, law, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. The important thing to understand here is that these golden opportunities could be right next to us without us even realizing it. You might have a family member, say, in healthcare, or a friend who might be a lawyer, or a neighbor who owns a small construction business, or a friend of a friend who maybe runs a restaurant, a college friend who owns a logistics company, maybe a local business owner that you're familiar with, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. There are people in your network, and wherever you're physically located, and through the experience of life that you've had, you've met people who are in these specific industries that you as a software engineer might not entirely be familiar with. And since you're not familiar with them, there's a very high chance that other software engineers likewise aren't familiar with them unless they utilize their unique advantage. Because as I mentioned before, most software engineers tend to share the same biases, right? Everybody wants to create a SaaS, everybody wants to solve a very specific problem. And I know what you might be thinking. Well, look, all the examples you listed here were on a small scale, on a more local scale. So you might be asking yourself, I can't get rich solving these quote unquote small problems. And to that, I have to give you a very comforting truth. You see, most people grossly underestimate how much money there actually is in the world and how much money actually flows every single day and exchanges hands, be it from person to person, from business to business. However much you're thinking of, multiplied by a million, if not even more, right? To give you an example, my company did over $500,000 in the last month alone, and we only have two out of state clients. Most of the clients that we serve are in state and mostly located in Southern California. And if we want to expand this, if we want to expand this from state to state to potentially worldwide, this will be a multi-million dollar, if not $1 billion business sometime in the near future. So understand that while you don't have to focus on the local scene, those of you who are aiming for around the $1 to $10 million annual recurring revenue mark, you can easily do that on a local scale, right? And keep in mind that what works on a local scale has a very high chance of working at a large enough scale as well. And last, what I want to leave you off here is some problems that I just found myself within the past few days of once again utilizing my network and utilizing my own unique advantage. So here's a couple that I'm going to list, and these are all ideas that will get you at least $1 million if you choose to solve them, right? Of course, some are going to be better than the others, and I'll tell you at the end which ones I think personally have a very high chance of being really good solutions. So first and foremost, I found that after talking to a few individuals that there are no customized CRMs, so customer relationship management tools for law firms exclusively handling civil cases. So CRM software tailored exclusively for law firms handling civil cases. That's one problem that I saw. I had an individual whose family member was in a shrimping business. And it turns out that there's no paperwork automation whatsoever. Everybody fills all the paperwork out by hand. And that's another problem that I found. Paperwork automation solutions specifically designed for the shrimping industry. Once again, extremely niche and nuanced, but should you actually do it, there's a lot of money in it. Next thing, inventory management software developed for independent used vinyl record stores. I was in a vinyl record store the other day, and as I was talking with the owner, I found out that this is a problem that a lot of actual vinyl record stores are having. They don't have a tailored inventory management software for specifically their own record stores, right? I also found when I was at a farmer's market that there's no good custom POS software tailored for specifically vendors at these farmer markets, right? And most people are using some of the bigger guys, such as Square, I believe, and so on and so forth. But there's no customized actual POS software, maybe tailored to even the local farmers market. And once again, that's a huge opportunity there that you can take a look at. And last but not least, another thing that I found, once again, all of this within pretty much a week, I would say, is the automation of patient care plans to streamline nursing workflows. I found out that a lot of nurses spend hours on hours filling out these patient care plans by hand. And a lot of the times they say that it's simply grind work. Hospitals end up paying them hourly, and these nurses aren't cheap, $65 to $75 an hour, if not more, especially if they're working overtime. And those hours can be better used on other tasks. So I just wanted to give you a quick example of what I mean by software engineers can change the world. Right now, we're taking a look at a very, very small set of problems, right? Something on a local scale or something. But nevertheless, these problems all will make you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, should you execute them properly. And we can start from very small problems such as these, right? Work on them for a few years, get enough capital to then move on to a bigger problem, and then a bigger problem, and then an even bigger problem. But this is how software engineers can completely change the world. You understand that if we have thousands and thousands of software engineers watching this video and trying to address these type of problems in their local communities, over the course of many years, we'll have revolutionized the entire scene, right? And I know we were talking about problems now. The next video will be specifically about how we can actually solve these problems once we found them. Let's assume for these specific cases, right, we found these problems, but how would we actually solve them? And first and foremost, since we did find them, how would we vet them to even create a solution for them? Are these worth creating a solution for? So stay tuned, because in the next video, we're going to be talking about how you can specifically solve these problems. As always, thank you for watching.